a must for your busy schedule. Various holistic therapies available. Contact us now on 07530 905 152 for your mobile massage therapist.
It's time for a cultural bonanza. The Black and White Cultural Gala is one of its kind in Scotland. Join us to celebrate the rich and diverse cultures of Scotland. Come and immerse yourself in the vibrant traditions of the African cultures. Enjoy a cultural gala of beautiful regalia and delicious food that make our communities unique. It's a night to honour our heritage through food, music and dance. Special guest artist Shay Longtom Yu. Official DJ Manu. Get ready to enjoy performances, traditional dance and captivating music ensembles. Don't miss this entertaining cultural exhibition and culinary delights from Cameroon. On Saturday, 14th of September, at one of Glasgow's finest, newest and exclusive venue, the home of the great event, Park Lane Loft. 82 Orr Street in Bridgeton, Glasgow, G40 2QF. Event starts 5:30pm until midnight. Secure your ticket now and prepare for a night of glamour and celebration. Entry ticket available now online for £20 at jamboradio.co.uk. £30 at the door before 9pm. Dinner served before 9pm at affordable prices. Do not miss. Dress code. Embrace the theme with your best black and white attire or your traditional regalia to enjoy the sophisticated atmosphere of the evening. This cultural gala is going to be an unforgettable evening. Get your ticket now.
On your mobile phone and on all social media platforms. Jambo Radio.
Good morning. Welcome to Exploring Faith with me, your host, Inonge Siluka from Overflow Chat. This show is about all things faith related, Christian faith that is. We talk about questions about the Bible, culture, the overlap between our culture, African culture especially, and Christianity, and basically anything that you might not hear from the pulpit. We are here for it. So please tell your friends about it. If you are tuning in, if you're returning, welcome back. So glad you listened to the show. I hope it's helpful. If this is your first time, welcome. I hope today's show will be good chat. And just before we get into today's topic, I just wanted to remind you of all the different places that you can listen to this show. You can listen to it on your radio if you're in your car, on DAB, of course. You can listen on the Jambo Radio app. You can listen on the website, jamboradio.co.uk. Or you can listen live on Facebook and YouTube. So if you want to share the recording of this show afterwards, you can do that on any of those platforms, website, YouTube, or Facebook. So on Exploring Faith today, we are going to be talking about something that I think is very popular, at least in this moment, and at least the language from this finds its way into our vocabulary, and that is thinking about some new age thought or new age thinking. So we're thinking about manifesting vibes and spirituality in general. Just asking the question, what do you think about it? If you're a Christian, is this something that you believe in? And all of that chat. But would love to hear from you. I want to hear from you. So please join in the conversation. You can always call the studio direct, and the number for that is 0141 530 2787. That is 0141 530 2787. Or you can send a WhatsApp message or voice note on 0745 990 6822. And if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook Live, you can also drop a comment there and we will pick that up and get back to you. What do you think about New Age thought? What do you think about manifesting and vibes and all these things? Do you have any questions about them? We would love to hear from you. And of course, if you are on social media, you can message us on Jambo Radio Scotland on Facebook, and on Twitter we are Jambo Radio 1, and on Instagram we are jamboradio.scotland, and you can also drop an email at info@jamboradio.co.uk. Would love to hear from you, so please join in the conversation. Comments, questions, any feedback. Thank you very much. And finally, just to remind you that I do have a blog, Overflow Chat, where you can also send questions, and where I also put recordings from all my shows, so you can find that on overflowchat.com. And if you're on Instagram, you can also find Overflow Chat there as well. So, spirituality, new age, vibes, manifesting. I put all of those words together because it's not a definitive religion. I think it's very broad. It's a spectrum. And so what is new age thought? I think what makes new age thought difficult to understand, I think, for some people, is that it means different things to different people, right? It's just a gathering of thoughts from Eastern thought, especially, I would say, that have their roots in kind of Eastern religion or Eastern thinking, where the self is kind of considered the divine. There's talk about the universe and how the universe conspires to help us, to bring us good energy or good vibes, as it were, and so there's a lot of different aspects of new age thought, and some people will pick one aspect of it. So they might pick the aspect of actually the universe. The universe replaces, I guess, God in that regard. And so a lot of the language of New Age is very similar to Christian language, because it's essentially spirituality. It's tapping into spirituality, and using some similar language. So they might affirm that, Jesus thing, and be like, yes, I believe in Jesus. Jesus is great, but also the universe. Or, yeah, I believe there's a God, but also, we are divine, we are gods. And so yeah, it becomes difficult, because people will affirm other religions, for example, or parts of other religions, whether it's Christianity or other religions, and then they'll tap into different aspects of these thinking and just merge that into one, essentially. So you might find somebody that says, actually they're into New Age, and their beliefs or what that looks like for them is completely different from another person. So yeah, just thought I would put that caveat out, that it's just kind of looking at some of the patterns of New Age thinking and asking the question, is this a good thing? Is this something that makes sense of reality of our world? Is this compatible with the Christian worldview? Because I think there are many Christians who would sort of believe that and say, yes, I manifest my reality, and it works, and that works for me, leave me alone. But as everything on this show, we want to just check everything through the lens of the Bible and say, what does the Bible have to say about all of this? So please drop in your thoughts or your questions. If you're a New Ager or somebody who believes in aspects of that, what is it that draws you to that? What is it that made you go down and into adopting that into your spirituality or your worldview? If you're somebody that's had some experience with that, what's been your experience of it, good, bad? Drop a message. You can drop a WhatsApp, 0745-990-6822. I wanted to start by talking about why I think New Age thinking is popular, and how it's made itself into our language. So whenever you talk about, good vibes only, that comes from New Age thought, or I just don't like that person's energy, it's giving bad energy. That's New Age thinking, and it's just in our vocabulary. Some people aren't even thinking, it's not that deep, like it's just vibes is just another word for I don't know what's atmosphere, or like what the environment or something. That person is good vibes, they're fun or whatever. So it's a spectrum. But essentially, it's made its way into our language. Why is it popular? And why do you think it's popular? I have a few thoughts on why I think that is. At least for people that come from religious backgrounds, I think New Age thinking attracts people who have had some kind of religious backgrounds, and some of that is people from African and Caribbean communities. And I think from a perspective of African Caribbean communities, why somebody might be drawn to that is just sometimes it's a rejection of Christianity, but not a rejection of spirituality, or the rejection of there being something or something greater than ourselves, right? I think as Africans, we are deeply spiritual people. And yeah, no, not everybody is. Some people are like, no, believe in nothing, I'm an atheist. But for the most part, the majority of population are spiritual in some regards. And so when people reject Christianity for different reasons, some people have had a negative experience, some people just don't want anything to do with it. For some people, it's like, no, I'm decolonializing, and Christianity has a colonial legacy, therefore I don't want anything to do with it. But then there's a void left there, because it's like, okay, we are still spiritual beings. God, the Bible tells us in Ecclesiastes that God has placed eternity in our hearts. That means they'll always be a part of us, even if we quench it. That's looking for more. And I think New Age thought then plugs in that gap, because it promises the spirituality aspect without, quote unquote, the baggage of religion, right? So I think that's one reason people might be drawn to it. And another one is just, again, tied to that is having something to lean on. I think sometimes an emptiness with just saying, we're just a random species in the universe. Everything is chance, and all we see is all there is. And so sometimes people are like, oh, this can't be it. There needs to be more. I need more. And so they want to find something that they can lean on, something that can help them get through life, something that can get them through challenges, whether that's personal, mental health, career, whatever it is. And a New Age thought or New Age thinking promises that, or at least says that it will do that in some of the things that it promises. And I think another draw of New Age thought is that it is the religion, for lack of a better word, it's the religion of self. It might tap into different worldviews, different religions, but you are in control of it. Essentially, you pick what you want, and you are essentially your own God. So a lot of it is actually, we have an aspect of the divine within us, like that's what the New Age thought would say, and we have the power actually to manifest our own realities, and so there is a draw to that, because it's up to you. And we talked about this in the previous episode when we're talking about life transitions and why we might find life transitions difficult, is we like to be in control, and anything that has an element of telling us we're not in control, of telling us we are not actually as awesome as we sometimes like to think, any dose of humility, we don't want that. New Age thought says you're in control, you're the driver, you are the god of your destiny, you are in control of your destiny. And there is a draw to that, because actually there's an aspect of our human nature that wants to be like a mini god. We want to be in charge. We want to control every aspect of our lives. Of course we cannot, but we still want to. And I think that individualism aspect is a draw. And then you don't have to go to church. You don't have to deal with awkward people, awkward Christians. You don't have to you can just do it on your own terms. And in our individualistic society, I think that is a big draw. But is that a good thing? Is it a good thing that we've sort of got this spirituality that we can sort of tap into on our own terms? And as with every worldview, and I talked about this in a very first episode when I think about worldviews, it just asked the question, how does this make sense of the world? Okay, so if this is my whole worldview, if this is my philosophy of the world, how does it make sense of reality of the world around me? What does it tell me about who I am as a person? What does it tell me about how I ought to engage with others around me? What does it tell me about what's going to happen to me if I die? What does it tell me about suffering? When I'm suffering, what does this philosophy tell me? Or if I applied it consistently to every situation of life, what does it tell me? And I think we'll sort of do that in the second part of the show. But I just wanted to sort of start out by sort of, just laying out aspects of the New Age and why we might be drawn to them. And then why am I picking on this? And you could talk about different other things. And I think it's because especially Christians who have been hurt by the church but still want to believe. They want to cling on to something. New Age thought borrows language from Christianity and borrows language from the Bible, and then just tweaks it ever so slightly into something that's more compatible or something that's more attractive. So we would pray, right? We would pray and ask God for help. Because he is a God who made the universe. He's a God who is in control, and he invites us to pray. That is the God of the Bible. That is Yahweh. And sort of in New Age thinking is, well, actually it's the universe, right? And we can't control God. Yes, sometimes the Bible gives us an indication that actually, there is an element in which we can plead, or we can wrestle even. As Jacob wrestled with God, we can wrestle with God and we can plead but we actually have no power over him. We have no authority over him. He's God and we are not. The universe in New Age thinking is not like that, because actually the belief is in the law of attraction. So, all realities essentially begin in the mind, and basically as you take action towards a goal or reality, and that's through thought, word, and deed, then the universe will conspire to help you as you basically manifest that reality. So in this worldview, positive thoughts lead to positive consequences, and negative thought lead to negative consequences. So it's about the power of the mind and positive thinking, good vibes and good energy, which essentially is telling you that you have the power to create that and you can manifest the reality you want. Now, is there aspects in which the how we think shapes our lives? Absolutely. Like even Proverbs says that. Like if I say I want to be successful in a particular area of my life, and I vocalize that and say I'm going to do that, and then I take action towards that, and I change my mindset, and I'm waking up earlier instead of just chilling in bed doing nothing, and I'm out there, I'm networking, I'm working hard. Proverbs says in general, the way life works in general is that if you work hard, usually you get a positive outcome. I say in general because we live in a sinful world, and books like Lamentations, Ecclesiastes, and Job remind us that actually sometimes life doesn't always work out that way. The people who work hard don't always get the outcome. Just go to any village in Africa and see a hardworking person still living in poverty. So there is always elements of truth with these things, in that, yes, if the way you think shapes your reality in some regard, but the difference is it goes a step further and says that is it. That is where the power lies. The power lies in your positive thinking. And then if you start to then apply that consistently to, okay, so what if you get cancer? Did you just not manifest enough? So when suffering comes, if your philosophy is positive thinking leads to good outcomes, what happens when tragedy strikes? If that's your philosophy is essentially telling you you didn't think positively enough. That's why you're in poverty. That's why you're suffering, this immune disease. That's why the person that you loved and cared for died. Essentially, because your reality is actually you're in control of your life and you're in control of your destiny by the positive thinking that you do to manifest success. So this works when things are working out for you. When you live in a society or an environment where in general, if you work hard, you get a good outcome. But we know, in this radio station, most of us who have family back home absolutely slogging it out, working hard and getting no outcome. There's no jobs. So in that situation, are they just not manifesting enough? Did they not have enough candles to sort of manifest the success or reality. You see what I mean? Like it taken to its full conclusion, this philosophy of manifesting has no good news for the sufferer of pain, has no good news for the grieving, it has no good news for the sufferer of injustice, it has no good news for anyone who is in a situation where they find themselves just life just sucks, and no amount of positive thinking is going to change their reality. And so that would be one of my biggest critiques of this, is it tends to work for people whose life is sort of already set up in such a way that generally, if they work hard, they'll get an outcome. You know, we live in the West. I live in the West. If I work hard enough in general, I'll get a good job, I'll get promoted, etc., etc. Apply that to another context, or another country, another economic situation, a war zone. That might not quite work out that way. And not that there isn't complexities of suffering, and we might do a whole topic on suffering and the Bible, because that's a question that we have, like, you know, why is there suffering in this world if God made the world? But at least the Christian worldview is honest about suffering. The book of Job shows that sometimes the innocent will suffer, because Job did nothing wrong. If you read the book of Job, he did nothing wrong. He was suffering due to external factors that he didn't even know about. The devil is in the background telling God, you know, if I make this person suffer, he's going to abandon you. Job is suffering because of an external factor he doesn't even know about. And his friends are saying, you must have done something wrong. Maybe you offended God. Maybe you sinned. The friends are wrong. Job was innocent. And God vindicates Job at the end of the book of Job, if you read it. So the Bible is honest about in just or unjust suffering. Lamentations, a book of Habakkuk, where Habakkuk is crying out, how long, Lord, will I cry out to you and you do not do anything? Habakkuk, a prophet of God, is crying out to God and saying, why won't you do anything about injustice? So whatever we say about suffering and pain and grief, the Bible is not indifferent to it and doesn't cover it up. Jesus wept, knowing he was going to raise Lazarus, who had died from dead. He wept alongside the sisters who were grieving. And so I think, when it comes to the conclusion of, you know, all this manifesting and positive thinking is all well and good when the factors are just about right, when the circumstances are just about right, when situations are favorable towards that. And I don't want to discourage anybody from, you know, working hard or trying to think more positively. Those are good things, but let's not make them God things. I think as Christians, let's be cautious that we don't have such an arrogant assumption that we think that we are actually in control. To that regard, we are not. We are finite human beings, and we need the humility to say, you are God and I am not, and that helps with a lot of things, but especially helps in situations of suffering. So that is first part of the show. Just wanted to lay that out. Let me know what you think, please. What's your feedback on all of that? What do you think? You can drop a message or a voice note on 0745 990 6822. In the second part of the show, I want us to think about the Bible, what the Bible says about some of this New Age thinking, and then also, what does a Christian worldview give? I guess in response to New Age thought and spirituality. So we'll be back soon. I'm just going to take a short music break, and I'm going to play you an absolute tune by Shailene called Startling Mystery.
Yeah, sovereign Lord, you truly deserve the prime praise. In creation, we can see a design trace, but since the fall, this world is such an unkind place, where crime pays, seeking the devil's wine taste. In my case, I was just on a blind chase, a mind waste, trapped in my asinine ways. But Christ braced himself, entered into time space. The vine breaks, so the branches can find grace. When light's rays hit the soul, the paradigm shakes. Sublime race, run at a predefined pace. Now me and Jesus are closer than intertwined lace, and by faith, we behold his divine face. So as we're lifting up our praise to you, receive it, Lord. The object of our affection, whom we adore, fallen in our misery. You daughter into history, the pardon of iniquity, startling the mystery.
The oceans, the plains, mountains, the rain. The universe proclaims the glory of your name. And what am I that you called me to your side, and took this heart of stone and broke it open wide? When I think about what your son did for me, oh, what a startling mystery. Indescribable is what your love is to me. Oh, startling mystery.
Yeah, sovereign Lord, who can truly understand your depths? In you there's life, you're the source of every man's breath. Your mysteries, the sharpest of minds can't guess. They stand perplexed, can't fathom what you plan next. In the garden, we failed your commands test. We transgressed, now our world is a grand mess. Lord, you're perfect, so why should you demand less? Man's best is only a sinking sand quest, but through Christ, watch God's saving hand flex. Redeem the people north, south, east, and west. Glorious robes, in the promised land dressed. We stand blessed, all because of the Lamb's death. So as we're lifting up our praise to you, receive it, Lord. The object of our affection, whom we adore, fallen in our misery. You daughter into history, the pardon of iniquity, startling the mystery.
The oceans, the plains, the mountains, the rain. The universe proclaims the glory of your name. And what am I that you called me to your side, and took this heart of stone and broke it open wide? When I think about what your son did for me, oh, what a startling mystery. Indescribable is what your love is to me. Oh, startling mystery.
Welcome back. You're listening to Exploring Faith with me, your host Inonge Siluka, here on Jambo Radio. We are discussing manifesting vibes and spirituality. Please drop a message if you're listening to this. What do you think about what I've said so far? Do you have any questions? Do you have your own thoughts? What are your thoughts on this? I'm classing it as New Age thought, just as an umbrella bracket, but like I mentioned earlier, very broad category of very different things. So please let me know what you think. Drop in a message to the show. You can message on Facebook Live or YouTube Live if you're listening there, or you can call the studio direct on 0141 530 2787, or you can drop a message on WhatsApp or a voice note as well on 0745 990 6822. That is 0745 990 6822. So yes, new age thinking. I want to tackle, because I sort of talked about New Age and very broadly, just sort of like spirituality in general. I think we'll do a separate episode where we just delve into different aspects of African spirituality, because I get why people might be drawn to that. There is a colonial legacy to Christianity. Nobody can deny that. And I think some of that is that colonialists came to certain places in Africa, or at least I know in Zambia, and anything they saw that was weird or that was not Western, they were like, that's witchcraft, step away from it. Drums, no, don't do drums. And they try to impose sort of Western dress code, Western cultures, and that came with the Christianity. Just want to say, personally, I'm a Christian, so I think Christianity is good and true, and I think people have tried to use Christianity as they would do anything that would benefit them, to cause harm and to perpetuate harm, and we cannot deny that. But what I would say is that actually, when you look at the history of, at least in Zambia, when the colonialists were in Zambia and the missionaries came with the colonialists, didn't do enough to actually challenge that. At least from when we read records, they didn't necessarily come as we are also part of the colonialists, but they use that sort of opportunity of, we're going to share the gospel. But they also brought harmful narratives with that, and they didn't do a lot to challenge the exploitation, essentially, of our people. But what I have noticed about history there, at least, is that Christianity in those places didn't actually grow whilst the colonialists were there. There wasn't much when they were present. It sort of did years after they left. And I think two reasons for that. One is what I mentioned earlier. We're deeply spiritual people. Absolutely, people were had aspects of ancestral, I say ancestral worship, not necessarily worshiping ancestors, because different, at least in my tribe, they would have believed that there's a God with a big G, and then there's a mini God that you sort of get through to the big God, or the big G. So people were already deeply spiritual. They had their gods. They believed in something greater than themselves. And then these colonists say, come along and say, oh, actually there's one true God, and Jesus is the only way through that God. And like, okay, looking at how you're treating us, it doesn't look like we want to believe any of that. But actually, like years later, after they've left, that's when Christianity really grew in these places, which tells me that actually people were already seeking, had, at least for the most part, a belief in a God. And so it wasn't that big of a jump. Like if you go to a secular country where they believe God doesn't exist, it's much difficult to then say to those people, by the way, Jesus is God's son, and he's fully God and fully human, and he is the only way to God, and you just have to trust and believe in him. You don't have to do rituals, you don't have to do weird rituals in order to believe in him. They'll be like, oh, there's no God, like what are you on about? But in a context where people are already believe there's God, and are already believing that their ancestors are watching over them in some regard, then actually introducing a monotheist God who has come down to earth in the person of Jesus, it's not that far of a stretch. And so I think within that, I just wanted to acknowledge that actually, sometimes it was just anything African or anything traditional medicines was just lumped as this sort of evil and like witchcraft because of that legacy, and therefore sometimes African Christianity has this weird identity crisis, I guess, where we don't really see our culture or things that are associated with our culture and is sometimes seen as inherently bad, when sometimes they're not, they're neutral. And I talked about this in my episode on culture and faith. But I think we still need to recognize that actually not every spirit, if you're a Christian, not every spirit is good, and there isn't neutrality when it comes to the spiritual. I think that's something that we should be careful when we're dabbling in. The spiritual realm is not to be messed with. Like, do not mess around with that stuff. It's not fun and games. And just wanted to read out 2 passages from the Bible just to highlight that, in case you're like, well, no, this is compatible with the Christian faith. And it's from Deuteronomy. This is a book in the Old Testament where God's people are being given instructions. They've been rescued from slavery, and they're being given instructions on what it looks like to live as people who have been freed, to live in accordance with, God's good design and God's good gift. And this is what Yahweh says to his people in Deuteronomy chapter 18 and verse 10 about occult or spiritual practices. When you enter the land the Lord your God is giving you, do not learn to imitate the detestable ways of the nations there. Let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son and daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, or casts spells, or who is a medium or spiritist, or who consults the dead. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. Because of these same detestable practices, the Lord your God will drive out these nations before you. You must be blameless before the Lord your God. The nations you will dispossess listen to those who practice sorcery or divination. But as for you, the Lord your God has not permitted you to do so. The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, from your fellow Israelites, who you must listen to. So there's a kind of forbidding of, engaging in anything that's kind of like spiritual outside of God himself. And it's not just a rejection of those things. You notice there, I read that last verse, it says, the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you. So the draw to the spirituality is, I need to hear, I need extra information, right? And there's almost a recognition that we can't have that within ourselves. We need to tap into something else, some other energy, some other spirit. This extra information, it's going to tell me the future. That's going to help me win. That's going to help me be successful. And Yahweh is saying, do not engage at all. Like, do not engage in any way, shape, or form. Rather, I'm going to raise for you a prophet. You want to hear a voice, you want to know what you ought to do, you want to know how you ought to live, listen to my voice through my prophet. And the prophet being referred to there obviously is Moses. But, Hebrews 1 tells us that in the past, God spoke in various ways and in various means through the prophets. In these last days, meaning now, he has spoken to us through his son, that is Jesus, essentially. So it's almost like what you are seeking from in these spirituality practices, in these things, God is saying, you've got them already. You've got them in me. I am the creator of the cosmos. You don't need to ask the universe for. I am the creator of the universe that you're asking for help. How unwise, how foolish is it to ask for help from a created thing when you could ask for help from the creator himself? And so just a second passage just to bring that home is one of my favorite books in the Bible, and I would recommend anybody to read it, and that's the book of Colossians, which basically, like in Colossians, like these people were being told that, what they had, the Jesus thing wasn't enough. They needed more. They needed to tap into other worldviews, other philosophies that were better, wiser, and they seem better and wiser because they seem to give instant results. And that's if they didn't, people wouldn't be drawn to them. So there's a promise of, you're gonna get results with this, but at what cost? There's always a cost. And so it's in that context that the apostle is writing to those Christians there, speaking to them and speaking to us as well, because God's word is timeless. And he is saying to them, reminding them of who they have believed in, the supremacy of Jesus. The Son, that is Jesus, is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through him and for him. And he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in him, in everything, he might have the supremacy. And get this, for God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven. So essentially, it's like Jesus is sufficient. He is above every power, ruler, whatever you're gonna tap into, he is greater than that. He made them. He is bigger, he's better, he's greater. He is enough. You don't need additional wisdom from a spirit, and this is the Holy Spirit, because you already have that in Jesus. Like sometimes we've got the stuff, but we want more stuff. Because it promises us short-term gain, but that's not how Christianity works. And so this is the exhortation. Again, this is from Colossians chapter 2. So then, just as you received Christ Jesus as Lord, continue to live your lives in him, rooted and built up in him, strengthened in the faith as you were taught. See to it that no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy, which depends on human tradition and the elemental spiritual forces of this world rather than on Christ. The message is clear, guys. Jesus is enough. Jesus is all you need. Jesus is powerful. Jesus is greater. He's better, essentially. So if you are tempted to be like, oh, but if I just dabble in this thing, it'll work and I'll get my success. There are consequences. I don't want to go into all of that. You can go on YouTube and just find some testimonies from people. Just don't spend too much time doing that. We don't want to be obsessive with some of that stuff, but just listen to some testimonies of people who have dabbled in this and have thought, it's just this one. I just need to get that job. I just need the success in this area of my life. I just need to feel better this one time. And it draws you in and it sucks you in. So what started as innocent or just something from a distance that you thought was just cute fun, and before you know it, you're deep engraved in it, and then you need to continue. You need to keep going. You need to up the stakes, and before you know it, you are essentially practicing the occult. So so just if you're a Christian, be cautious. If you're not a Christian, I just want to encourage you that whatever it is that is drawing you to those things, whatever you think it is that you need from that, Jesus has got that. He is the God man. He is the creator and sustainer of the whole universe. He is the God who weeps alongside the suffering. He is the one through whom all things were made. All things were made through the power of his word. In the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God. And in him all things were made through him. So that is the Jesus that I want to encourage you, dear Christian, to place your hope in, and to continue instead of waiting for a word from the realm, a spiritual realm. You've got the word of God in front of you there, and the Spirit of God helping you with that. And I know some people will say, oh yeah, but some people have a sense of vibes of people's energy and things like that. And again, just borrowing Christian language, because the Bible tells us that people have spiritual giftings. There's people who can sense weird things from people, and you can't be explained with logic, but they've got a gift of discernment, and they're able to tell that. That's not energy, that's the Spirit of God working in them. And so through God's grace, yes, people will have a sense of things. Yes, there's a spiritual realm in which there is some power in that. But it's always limited power, and it always comes at a cost, and it never ends. It parades as light, but it's darkness disguised as light. And just be cautious as we engage in these things, that you don't find yourself in a place where you thought you were walking towards light. You thought you were running away from religion, which obviously we want to critique situations where the church has caused harm and things like that, but it's Jesus' church. Jesus is good. His church sometimes messes up. Don't give up on that, and be reminded that Jesus is too good, regardless of what sometimes people that claim to represent him do in his name. And so I think the Christian worldview offers something better, not always easier. It's easier to get that instant success, and the Christian message does not guarantee or promise that. Yes, absolutely, God blesses his people, but the Bible says he blesses the righteous and the wicked. So there's people living wicked lives who are successful, And the Bible isn't surprised by that. And so we ought to be careful, even in our proclamation of Christianity, that we're not giving a prosperity gospel that says, come to Jesus and you will be successful. Come to Jesus and all these things will work out for you. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. And both of those things are totally consistent with what it means to be a Christian. And doesn't mean you're less of a Christian because your life is not successful, because you don't have money, because things are difficult for you. God's people have suffered throughout the ages. You see that in the Bible with many characters in the Bible, in case you're looking for examples. And just hang around with any older Christians and they tell you their story, you're gonna be like, oh dear me, okay, my problems are pale insignificant. So don't just see Christianity as like, what is it offering me? It's about a person, and who is that person, and who does he say he is? And if he is who he says he is he not worth following? If Jesus is, the God who came down, Emmanuel, who was willing to suffer with us, who knows what life is really like, would you not want to put hands and put your life in that God? I would, and that's something that I would encourage you to as well. So that ended on a very, very deep note, but essentially just wanted to, you can read more about this. There's a book called Unmasking the New Age, which is really helpful if that's something you want to delve into, just in terms of the philosophies and what's behind that and some of the critique of that. Then that's something you can read about. But keep your eyes on Jesus. He's a prize. He is life and goodness and everything that we need ultimately. So that's all I have time for today. On our next episode, we're going to be talking about being a creative Christian. Not me, myself. I've got a guest who is a spoken word poet, a creative, and we're going to be talking about, some of challenges that what does the Bible have to say about creativity and art and all of these things, and what are some of the challenges of being a creative in Christian spaces and being an African as well, just to add to that, and some of the additional challenges with that. So look out for that in a fortnight. In the meantime, please continue to follow Jambo Radio on our socials, as well as Overflow Chat. That's my blog, Overflow Chat, on Instagram, or the website overflowchat.com. I'm gonna leave you with one more tune, and this is one of my fave. It is by Nathaniel Bassey, and it is Onishe Iyanu. Bye.
Onishe Iyanu, you're the God of awesome wonders. I've tasted of your power. Onishe Iyanu, you have shown me so much mercy, much more.